Barca board resign amid European Super League plans. Premier League bosses are in trouble. Liverpool's injury list lengthens, a transfer roundup, plus this week's great debate, all coming up on today's OneFootball Daily News. As I'm your host, Angelina Kelly, let's get into it. First up, and Barcelona fans were of course celebrating the departure of director Josep Maria Bartomeu and his board, but before he left, he dropped a little bit of a bombshell that the team were apparently signed up to a European Super League. Now, on Monday, it seemed like the Barcelona board were ready to resign that day. Then it seemed like they weren't going to resign yesterday and they were going to try and fight this vote of no confidence. Then it seemed like they realised that the vote of no confidence was still going ahead this weekend, so they have finally decided to resign, and I'm sure Barcelona fans, most of you anyway, are very, very happy to hear this. Now, this vote of no confidence was after 20,000 fans signed kind of against the president, but this will no longer be required. As he left, Bartomeu did make a statement and he said that Barcelona had been in talks about this European Super League. Now, I did mention this last week on the Daily News, and what this seems to be is the biggest teams in Europe, around 19 more or less, the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool and Manchester United have apparently been in discussions about it, and this will be something that will happen instead of the Champions League. It is a tournament backed by FIFA, and if Barcelona have already pretty much signed on the dotted line to be a part of this in the future, that is one massive team ticked off their to-do list. Now, this is a little bit of a strange one for me, because if this is going to replace the Champions League, I know last week when we talked about it, I did mention, what does this mean for the leagues? Maybe these big clubs should not be part of their domestic leagues because of this, and then it would give other teams a chance to win the trophy. But with the Champions League, I feel like without the big names, the Champions League is just going to become a little bit like the Europa League. And also, one of the best things about the Champions League is seeing teams that have 100% earned their right to be in the competition, but maybe aren't as big as your Bayern Munich or your Juventus, etc. But they still manage to have their opportunity to play these teams. They get to put themselves on the map, put themselves out there a little bit more, and certain players also manage to get noticed. And to take this away, I think it would be such a shame. And anyway, why do we need a full league of seeing these teams play each other? Yeah, it might be exciting, but towards the end of the Champions League anyway, we see these teams play each other. So we already kind of get that thrill of watching them play each other. And I think that if season in, season out, we saw, Barcelona playing Juventus or Liverpool playing Bayern, etc., all these big teams, I think it would kind of make it not as special. So I guess we'll have to wait and see with this one. But in the meantime, Barcelona will be taken over by a management commission, and an election will take place in between 40 and 90 days. Next up, speaking of new footballing projects, Project Big Picture. Now, this was reported a few weeks ago, and we're now finding out that Premier League chairman and chief executive actually met with the big 6 teams that were apparently involved in this before their meeting with the other 14 Premier League clubs, and they are furious. Now, this meeting included senior representatives from Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Tottenham and Chelsea, and this was 2 days after the project was revealed and a day before the meeting with all the Premier League teams. Now, the fact that they've had this meeting with just the big 6, fair enough, whatever, but to not tell the other 14 teams is very, very sketchy, and they've certainly got themselves into a bit of hot water here. All this does is add fuel to the fire regarding the big 6 being considered on one level and the other 14 Premier League clubs being considered on maybe a lesser level. The fact that the big 6 were involved in these talks, and then the Premier League to not keep the other 14 clubs involved in what was going on, is just an absolute liberty, to be honest. One of the executives from the 14 clubs has said that Chief Executive Gary Hoffman of the Premier League was in the meeting with them, and he acted like he had no clue what was going on, and he was really, really shocked about this project, and little did we all know, he knew about it all along. So not only did Hoffman do a bad acting job, but he was also given a copy of the project by a Chelsea chairman, and chief executive of the Premier League, Richard Masters, was actually involved in the initial discussions. Then he declined, he didn't really want to be involved, but he was still being updated. All of this was kept quiet from those 14 other clubs and from everybody else. This situation just seems to get worse and worse, For this big project to be being discussed in the dark anyway, that is shady. The fact that these 14 clubs were left out, absolute liberty, as I say, and the fact that these Premier League big bosses were involved, they've then come out and released statements as the Premier League saying that they weren't really too sure about what was going on, they'd only heard reports, when in reality they were in the know the entire time. It is such a slap in the face, not only for fans, but for these clubs and for people that trust these organisations. It's going to be really interesting, I guess, to see what's going to happen from this and how the Premier League are going to manage to smooth things over, because I don't really blame these 14 clubs for being so angry. And like I say, we're going to have to see how this one pans out. Next up, just when you thought things could not get any worse for Liverpool, they do. Now, they did win their Champions League fixture last night, but at the expense of Fabinho, who limped off the pitch. Yes, this is the Fabinho that is replacing the injured Virgil van Dijk and Joel Matip. He was their saving grace. He was the new person that was going to fit into that centre-back role and kind of keep things ticking over whilst Van Dijk was injured before they maybe try and sign somebody in January. And that has just gone completely out of the window. The Brazilian obviously joins Van Dijk and Matip on the sidelines with apparently a hamstring injury. Klopp has come out saying that he felt like he could have maybe played on but wouldn't have been able to sprint, which kind of defeats the object of being on the pitch. So he is going to have to wait and see the amount of time that he's going to be out. We don't know yet. Klopp says that he's waiting for a scan, but this is not looking good. What this does mean is that Liverpool are down to the bones of their central defenders, and with the fixtures coming in thick and fast, they are really going to be stretched. Now, the options that they do have, obviously 19-year-old Reece Williams came on for Fabinho. He was previously playing in 6th tier English football. Not the most experienced, extremely young, but an option. Klopp also mentioned 23-year-old Nathaniel Phillips. Now, he did feature for Liverpool against Everton in the FA Cup in January. He then rejoined Stuttgart on loan for the rest of the season. So he is somebody who is a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, but like I say, these are worrying times for Liverpool's defence. One thing's for sure, that if any manager is going to kind of almost relish this as a challenge and push through, it's Klopp. He's the manager that I think you would want in this kind of situation. But one thing's for sure, there's going to be no more debates as to whether Liverpool should sign a centre-back or will Fabinho be okay. All this tells us is that come January, when the transfer window opens, Liverpool better have a centre-back ready to sign on the dotted line. Next up, and it is a transfer roundup, this is where we take a look at some of the other news and transfers going on in the footballing world. And first up, it has come out that Juventus apparently tried to sign Barcelona's 17-year-old Ansu Fati. Over at Dortmund, their manager has come out saying that all of the drama over the summer regarding Jadon Sancho and his potential departure to Manchester United has caused a drop in form. Speaking of Manchester United, it seems like they are going to push once more for Dayot Upamecano next summer. And finally, Barcelona are looking to sign Donyell Malen. He is from PSV Eindhoven, and if they don't manage to sign Depay, that is who they're going to be going for. Next up, it is the great debate. This is where the OneFootball newsroom pose a question to you guys, and you can find their answers and mine in the article on the OneFootball app, which is available to download if you haven't already. Now, the question this week: which is the best Premier League partnership in history? For me, defensively, yeah, I'm going to be biased. Don't really care what everyone thinks, but I am going with Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. Those two were such a perfect duo in my opinion. I think with Vidic, he was more of the aggressor out of the two. He was absolutely phenomenal for Manchester United. He was great in one-on-one situations. And then you also had Rio Ferdinand, who, yeah, as he got older, maybe lost his pace, but he did have his pace. He was so comfortable on the ball, and they really, really complemented each other. In 7.5 years, they managed to win 5 Premier League trophies, 3 League Cups and a Champions League. If that isn't success, I don't know what is. There are so many other duos that you could go for. I know that this question was inspired by Son and Kane at Spurs, but of course, I don't know if you think over the years, special shout out to obviously Martin Keown and Tony Adams back in the day, the likes of Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp, you could go on, but for me, got to be Ferdinand and Vidic. So that is everything for today's OneFootball Daily News. Thank you so much to all of you for watching. Make sure you get involved in the comment section below and let me know what you guys think about all of today's OneFootball Daily News, and of course that great debate question. Whilst you're there, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribing, and check out all the other content that we have got going on at OneFootball by clicking here or here. And until next time, I will see you guys later.